You can't keep getting away with it!
Hello, Resident Alice fan here, and that is sex. But beyond sex, there are relationships. Some positive, others not so much. But what happens when the studio that make Jack Bros decides to explore relationships? We get a bunch of blocks. Alice is a Japanese studio that is known for the Shin Megami Tensei games, and more specifically, the Persona games. But there was a time where Persona was not nearly as popular, and Alice's biggest game was Persona 4. Atlas soon started development on the next Persona game with a sort of tech demo. Atlas were going to use the new modern technology with the PS3 and Xbox 360. Yeah, modern. The HD capabilities with the PS3 and Xbox 360 were enticing, as well as the amount of content that they could put into the game. This tech demo they were working on ended up flourishing into a full game, titled Catherine. Catherine started gaining hype in Japan after its reveal, but it surprisingly was gaining hype in the West. Atlas pushed for Catherine with massive amounts of marketing. Atlas would release a demo a few months before the release, and would respond to player feedback by decreasing the difficulty. Another interesting thing about Catherine is that the game has two main cover arts, one for the Xbox and the other for PlayStation. The Persona dev team was the ones developing the game, and they wanted to make it more adult because, well, they were making a lot of teenage stories at the time. They also wanted to make the story more realistic, with the characters having more realistic animations as well. Anyways, in 2011, Catherine would finally be released to critical and commercial success. It would be Alice's biggest game. Well, until...
Fine then. You like teasing me, little Looks like I have to crack.
Anyways, it would receive a PC port in 2019 titled Catherine Classic, which is the version I played. Anyways, enough talking, let's get to playing Horny, the video game. This is Trisha, the host of a show called Golden Playhouse, which is like a Sunday night television show almost. It's like Vincent is the protagonist of this week's episode. Oh yeah, this is Vincent Brooks, the main protagonist of this story. Vincent Brooks is voiced by Troy Baker. You know, the Troy Baker. Troy Baker is arguably the biggest video game voice actor. He has voiced Joel, Booker DeWitt, Sam, Kanji, and plenty of others. He kills it as Vincent Brooks though. His panicked yet somehow casual demeanor is fantastic, and when he needs to be badass, he delivers it well. Back to the plot, where Vincent lands himself in a nightmare, where he sees visions of sheep and blocks. What the fuck? Here is the main gameplay of Catherine. Blocks. It's pretty damn fun. Vincent's goal here is to get to the top of the stage by moving blocks and using power-ups. Vincent has the power to move blocks by holding onto them. The blocks edge or connect to other edges. If the block is not connected to another block or edge, it will fall down. But as long as the block is connected to a single edge, it will stay. This can lead to a lot of unique puzzles and movement techniques. I mean, even the devs knew this, as they show you all these crazy movement options in the intermission areas. Also, during the nightmare stages, there are enemies. These fat fucks try to body block you and can get really annoying, but with some swift movement and seduction, you can knock these losers straight to the abyss. You can also find items and gold throughout the stages. Gold is used to purchase items in the intermission areas, while items can be also found mid-climb. Some items allow you to make blocks out of thin air, and others change the terrain. They're all pretty useful as well. The pillow is by far the best in my opinion, as it gives you a whole extra life. And let's just say, having extra lives is well worth it, because, Catherine is an incredibly difficult video game. The game throws new blocks at you every few stages, with some of them being wild. Ice blocks make you slip, and the amount of times I've accidentally died to these things are insane. Heavy blocks take longer to push, and some blocks you can't even move. Cracked blocks break after walking on them, and trap blocks are cancer. Combine this with hard puzzles and a time limit, and you got a stressful ass game. But I never really found Catherine to be unfair at any point. Sure, it can get difficult, but it's always satisfying, and rarely does your death ever feel cheap. Catherine also contains boss fights. These bosses will try to kill you while climbing up the blocks, and have super powerful attacks. There's this one boss that throws some pink shit at you and reverses your controls, and that was pretty annoying, but with enough patience, you can beat it. Now, there is a second half of the gameplay, the social sim elements. But before we socially interact and touch grass, we gotta progress with this story. Vincent wakes up from the nightmare and heads on a date with his girlfriend, Catherine, with a K. So Catherine has two major characters called Catherine. So for the rest of the video, I will call K-Atherine, and C-Atherine, C-Atherine. K-Atherine clearly has a very straight and focused personality, and clearly wants to move forward in the relationship. Meanwhile, Vincent just wants to take things slow and not fully commit to marriage. Bam! A murder happens, and Vincent ends up at the Stray Sheep with his friends Orlando, which is his best friend, Johnny, the calm, kinda badass one, and Toby, the young, ambitious one. And here is where the second half of the gameplay begins. Here, you can talk to your friends and other people at the Stray Sheep to pass the time. Your friends will tell you about their problems, dreams, loved ones, and many other things. Meanwhile, the people at the bar represent different views on relationship and life in general. You must talk to these people, or they could possibly die if they're suffering from the same nightmares as you. You can also receive messages on your phone, and depending on your response, your morale meter can change. Think of blue as lawful, while red is chaos, and the more you engage on either side, the more it shifts. It can change your dialogue, but most importantly, it will give you a different ending, of which there are 9 in Catherine Classic. You can also drink at the Stray Sheep to boost your speed in the nightmare stages. You can also receive trivia sometimes when you're drinking, and this just adds to the vibes and atmosphere of Stray Sheep. When you get bored of talking, you can also game with the Rapunzel stages, which are like mini puzzles to help your skills in the nightmare stages. Overall, the gameplay is rock solid, blending puzzle solving with social elements. Sure, the gameplay is weird, but it's really unique. It feels great to play, and it's really fun to solve these intense puzzles and then relax with the homies at the bar. Alright, now unlike some other video games I've reviewed, Catherine actually has a story to tell. But how good is it? Vincent continues to drink even as his friends leave, and after some time, a girl walks into the bar. She immediately starts talking to Vincent, and they immediately hit it off. This girl also just so happens to be named C-Atherine, or Catherine. Anyways, Vincent soon goes home and falls asleep, only to be put back into the nightmare. First of all, everyone looks like a sheep to Vincent, and everyone sees Vincent as a sheep. Second, we start to learn all the types of people stuck in these nightmares. They are all men, who happen to have relationship issues. The boss for the first stage is the Fist of Grudge, which is extremely disturbing. The Fist of Grudge resembles 2 female arms, which I feel represents the lack of control and balance that Vincent has with K-Atherine. The Fist of Grudge uses a fork to attack Vincent, and if you're hit by it, you will die brutally. Overall, it's a relatively no thrills and basic boss, but since it's early on in the game, it makes sense. The Fist also already starts to set a horror tone for Catherine, which is something I gotta mention. I wouldn't call Catherine a horror game, it's more like a thriller with a lot of tense moments, but the game clearly has a lot of horrific imagery, which is something unique about it. Vincent soon reaches the peak. He opens the door, which soon flashes a shining light, killing the Fist and letting Vincent escape the nightmare. Vincent wakes up only to see something I can't show because, YouTube. Vincent, unlike me, does not have erectile dysfunction, and soon panics as he realizes he most likely cheated on K-Atherine with, well, C-Atherine. Vincent tells Orlando about the incident. Orlando is pissed at Vincent at first. He soon starts to comfort Vincent, hoping he can calm down and start to think straight. Once again, Vincent goes to the Stray Sheep to hang out with the gang. Here, Toby talks about his hopes for a woman, aka Erica. Meanwhile, Johnny gets depressed over his severe lack of riz. Soon, Erica comes over and tells the gang about the Women's Wrath, a curse that targets cheating men and kills them. The gang then proceeds to bully the fuck out of Vincent, and I drink to cope with the pain. Erica delivers one last remark on the boss's glasses, saying how he uses them to hide his face. Here is where I want to compliment the writing in this game, because unlike a lot of Atlus's games, it feels a lot more natural and normal. Atlus has an issue where they love to force themes down your throat in the dialogue, and while sometimes I think it works, other times I feel like it's forced. But the jokes they tell here in Catherine make their conversations feel so much more down to earth and relatable than any Persona or SMT game, or just most video games in general. There's lots of foreshadowing and backstories are hidden in these conversations. It makes me want to talk to people like Toby, Orlando, Johnny, Archie, Erica, hell, even the boss. Just the dialogue here is excellent. Like, Atlus, you did a good job. Anyways, after some more drinking and panicking, C-Atherine shows up at the bar and Vincent immediately leaves in order to avoid the wrath. Anyways, time for the next nightmare, the torture chamber, which introduces the trap blocks. Trap blocks activate when you walk over them, so if you don't move off of them quickly, you will die. Anyways, each time you clear a stage, you reach the rest area, where you can talk to other sheep, some of which are from the bar. Here, you can enter the cathedral to move on to the next stage. In said cathedral, you will also receive a question from this mysterious man. The question usually has something to do with Vincent's view on relationships, and depending on your answer, the morale meter will change. The boss for level 3 is this immortal beast, and if I go into detail about what it is, I'll probably get an age restriction. This bitch right here spews a bunch of pink shit all over you and reverses your controls. It is so annoying. However, with enough grit and passion, you can beat it. This time, Vincent once again wakes up to boobies in his face, but soon learns that Seathrin's name is Seathrin. She also tells him that if she catches him cheating on her, she will kill him. Vincent then goes on a date with Seathrin, where she tells him,
I think I'm pregnant.
The fuck?
Vincent is immediately hit with panic. Combine this with Seathrin's growing suspicion, and you get an intense as hell cutscene that perfectly moves the plot. Soon, Vincent and the gang are back in the Stray Sheep, where most of the gang are bullying the shit out of him. The gang's perspective on Vincent's future is really interesting to see. Johnny is happy for him, if not a bit worried about his behavior. Orlando is more grumpy and giving him a so-called reality about marriage and children, and Toby's just kind of laughing at him. The boss and Erica soon come over, and the boss says something very interesting. Once again, gotta mention how great the discussions are during the social sim aspect and the gameplay at the Stray Sheep. They are just so well written and full of characterization and character development. They're also just fucking funny. Vincent leaves to his house where he drinks and smokes till he passes out. And of course, he has another nightmare. This night's trial is the Inquisition, and it almost feels like filler. It's so frickin' small and short that it's not even funny.
I wonder if I'm in this because I was associating with a younger crowd in our company.
I relate. The boss for the Inquisition is, no surprise, a baby. The baby represents the fear of fatherhood, obviously, and this thing makes me want to rip my fucking head out. Now, thanks to my big dick energy, it only took me like 1 hour to beat it, but I did.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you.
We don't care.
Vincent wakes up once again with Seathrin in his room. This time, Vincent swears that he didn't call her or even talk to her, but Seathrin begs to differ. Soon, Seathrin finds a long hair, most likely belonging to Seathrin. This triggers demon mode. Thankfully, Vincent pulls a Walter White out of his ass to save him, and an ant bug thing crawls around his room, and then... This whole sequence is intense as shit, and honestly really well animated and performed. And thankfully, once again, Vincent channels his inner Walter White to get out of this. But Seathrin, being suspicious, drops the bomb that she is indeed pregnant, meaning Vincent has to grow a pair and be responsible. Soon, Vincent takes a shit. I relate. But not only is he shitting, he's also jerking off. I relate. But not only is he shitting and jerking off, he's with the homie. I'm sorry, I can't get behind these actions. Soon, Vincent's at the bar, this time by himself. I talk to strangers to pass the time as Vincent contemplates his life decisions. Vincent leaves the Stray Sheep to go home and sleep, where he, surprisingly, does not drink and simply just sleeps. But you know the drill by now, I end up in a nightmare and I gotta beat it. This nightmare is called the...
What's up guys, it's Quandale Dingle here.
This introduces the most annoying block in the game, the ice blocks. When walking over ice blocks, you will slip until you reach a normal block or get blocked by a wall. But only when you move side to side on an ice block, not up or down. You also can't grab the ledge if you fall off while slipping, meaning you just flat out die. Having to remember this while solving puzzles gets really annoying, but honestly, I kinda like the challenge, and the use of ice blocks are creative enough, so they don't really get stale. Overall, good job, Atlas. The boss for this stage is the bride, who represents fear of marriage for Vincent. It means Vincent's panic over moving on in life and settling down manifested into this bitch-ass boss fight. But because I'm godlike, this ends up being a pretty easy boss fight. Phone rings and Vincent answers it only to be yelled at by some dude named Steve. Who is Steve? Anyways, Steve here claims to be C. Atherin's boyfriend, which of course sends Vincent into shock for like the 500th time. Anyways, Vincent decides to have a talk with C. Atherin about this Steve guy. C. Atherin claims to have no idea about Steve and says maybe he's talking about a different Catherine. This hits Vincent with the idea that K. Atherin is cheating on him. But well, the subtitles spoiled this shit. Anyways, Vincent tells the gang about K. Atherin potentially cheating on him. They'll claim, however, they have no idea who C. Atherin is or looks like, and also help Vincent calm down, while also hitting him with the reality check that he's cheating as well. Vincent is basically the imposter from Among Us. You know, he just blames others for shit he's doing. Vincent then proceeds to get lit up once again. This night's stage is the clock tower, which introduces these brand new bomb blocks. Honestly, these just kind of exist. They feel like another obstacle in the way rather than a new idea to spice up the puzzles. The baby is back for revenge, this time with a big ass chainsaw. He uses this to send out attacks that are pretty fun to navigate through, so overall, this boss gets a I don't hate it out of 10. Vincent wakes up to C. Atherin reminding him of the date they set up apparently. Vincent then soon meets K. Atherin to ask her about Steve. She tells him that while she met a Steve a day ago, she has no real connections with him and simply tells him to start working more. Great job. Vincent calls up Steve, and Vincent tells him that nobody knows who the hell this guy is. Steve describes how C. Atherin looks, but the game doesn't tell you what he says. Steve panics in fear, and Vincent simply sighs in relief. The gang meets up at the bar again. After Vincent tells them about Steve, the gang starts talking about all these weird dreams they've been having. Well, besides Toby. Orlando and Johnny both mention these weird dreams, and Vincent starts to put the puzzle pieces together. Vincent promises to be better and plans to break up with C. Atherin. Stage 7 is the Spiral Corridor, and something I have to mention is how so little people are left in the nightmares. They have all fell and died because they simply couldn't handle the dreams anymore. Kinda dark, not gonna lie. The Spiral Corridor introduces the weird black hole blocks that suck you in and instantly kill you. They're basically trap blocks on crack, so watch out. The boss here is the Phantom Mask, who is extremely creepy. I think it represents the two sides of Vincent's love triangle, but that's just my thinking. Anyways, I clap its ass to the abyss, but then Steve shows up. Steve asks Vincent where C. Atherin is so that she can save him. Steve then claims that C. Atherin cursed him and tells Vincent that he's cursed too and that she's taking revenge for betrayal. This is until...
Hey, come on!
Vincent wakes up to hang out with Orlando when the news says that Steve Delhomme died in his sleep, who had been feuding with his wife. This triggers Vincent, and he finally starts to remember his nightmares. Vincent starts to piece it, but Orlando denies him and says that he was the one who was betrayed. Orlando calms down though and starts talking about his ex-wife, and tells Vincent to finally break up with C. Atherin. Meanwhile, Vincent finally breaks up and gets the shit beat out of him. Vincent finally breaks the curse, and here's a scam internet provider. All seems fantastic, as even K. Atherin shows up to talk to him. This is until C. Atherin shows up for her last fucking revenge. We then receive a cutscene that can only be described as a fucking nightmare. K. Atherin yells at Vincent for obvious reasons. Meanwhile, C. Atherin bullies the shit out of K. Atherin to make her feel jealous. They then argue as Vincent tries to Mickey Mouse his way through this shit, and this is until C. Atherin attacks K. Atherin and ends up getting stabbed and dying. K. Atherin goes insane, and it seems like Vincent walked into another nightmare and forced to climb before Vincent spills his heart out, only for the nightmare to end. Vincent for real wakes up and finds K. Atherin talking to him. She then reveals that the pregnancy is fake, and that she knows that Vincent was cheating on her and that they are done. Vincent goes insane, claiming that nothing ends up. Vincent's friends also claim that they have never seen C. Atherin as well. But while all alone, Vincent remembers that C. Atherin did speak to another man. The boss. The boss reveals that he was behind the curse, using the succubus, or C. Atherin, to test non-committing men. Vincent challenges the boss to a fight. If he wins, then the nightmares end. But if the boss wins, then, well, he dies, I guess. So the boss against the boss begins, and while long, it's honestly very easy. Vincent wins the fight, saving himself and others. I end up getting the Catherine true ending, which in my opinion is a very good ending. It has the most conclusion to all the characters, and I feel like it's the most realistic of the non-freedom endings. You see what happens to Johnny, Toby, and Orlando, and overall, it's a happy ending. This and the Catherine true ending are my favorites. So that ends Catherine, a wonderful game with an excellent story. The voice acting and writing combine to craft an incredible and meaningful story about the importance of relationships. But this is not the end, as I've been purposely avoiding the side characters at the bar, as I feel like I should talk about them separate from the main story. The men you find at the Stray Sheep are also having relationship and personal issues, and are also suffering from the nightmares. If you don't talk to them, they will die. In my playthrough, I saved a whopping 2 out of 5 people. The people you can save are Justin the journalist, Morgan the cop, Archie an employee at Bantam Suits, Todd the manager of Bantam Suits, and finally Daniel, a corporate manager. I did not complete Todd, Archie's, or Daniel's story. I did talk to them, but I did not complete them. So I will not cover them in this video because this is a representation of my playthrough, so yeah. To begin, let's talk about Justin, the journalist. Justin comes to the Stray Sheep to cope with something just like everybody else. Justin has a fascination with the curse, or women's wrath. Justin comes off as a calm, cool, and collected man who simply wants to pursue his interests. But as you start to talk to him, he reveals that he killed a child. No, not literally. He was writing about a ballerina dancer, and the story blew up. Due to the stress of fame and non-stop bullying from rivals, going as far to kill her family, she would write a suicide note, thanking Justin for his story, and then killing herself. Justin could never get over this, and would soon develop a fascination with the deaths happening. The reason why he's stuck in the nightmares, however, is due to his depression over the suicide. This depression and self-hatred is the main reason why he won't marry his current girlfriend, who have been together for 7 years. Though talking with Vincent, he has learned to move on and stop blaming himself over his writing, and decides to start writing again and marry his girlfriend. I think Justin is a solid character and is a very good exploration of the themes of depression and suicide. He's an actual likable character, unlike some of the other people you meet in the bar, so he's easy to get attached to. Overall, he's a solid character with a solid story. Next up is Morgan the police officer. 6 years ago, Morgan and his wife start arguing one night. This argument soon turns into a fight, which ends in Morgan telling her to get out. She would soon be shot to death, and Morgan would blame herself for her death and promises to find the killer and kill him. Once finished with killing the killer, he will then kill himself, as he has no purpose in life without her. He also would become addicted to alcohol as a way to help the pain. Morgan enters the nightmares because he pursues women, even though he has no intentions of marrying them or even starting a relationship. Now interestingly, Todd, one of the Stray Sheep goers, stopped Morgan from killing himself, even though they supposedly hate each other. I just think that's kind of interesting, but I don't really know if this means anything in the grand scheme of things. Because of Vincent, however, Morgan promises to stop drinking alcohol until he catches the killer. He changes his mind on the idea of killing the killer, instead wanting him to go through the actual justice system. Morgan once again tackles the themes of depression and self-guilt, but I think Morgan handles it better. Catherine is a game about relationships, and Morgan's depression is caused by his final interaction with his wife before she dies. Because of that connection, I think Morgan's story fits better into the themes and identity of Catherine than Justin does. So overall, Morgan is a great character with a great story. And that is my experience with Catherine, a game that I think is nearly flawless. It's fun, difficult, and challenging, and features one of the best stories I've played in a video game. So for that, in my humble opinion, it will receive a 10 out of 10. Catherine Full Body. Catherine Full Body was released in 2019 and is an enhanced remaster featuring new content and gameplay changes. These include balance tweaks, new endings, remix mode adding new blocks to change up the gameplay, and many more changes. The biggest change, however, is the new character added into the main story, Rin, making this a love square and not a love triangle. But in my opinion, Rin feels very forced into a already complete story. Rin is a decent character, but the pacing gets ruined because of the number of cutscenes with them. This is why on a first playthrough, I recommend playing the original game to get a more tight and well-paced story. And while the improvements to the gameplay in Full Body are nice, they are not game-changing and honestly are kind of underwhelming for a fully priced game. So for now, I'm done. This is by far my longest script I have ever written, and I'm kind of tired for now. So, I'm done. and please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.